What is going on, Headliner Nation? Hopefully everyone is doing well out there today, and week 2 is a prime example of the sick world that is trying to predict the NFL. Now, last week we hit on 19 player picks inside of our Discord. However, the ones in this show last week, we got killed by the blowout games of Detroit and Buffalo. That's my bad. I didn't see that big of a blowout coming, but it's all right. It happens. You adapt, you overcome, you trust the process. Now, on the season, after last week, that's going to put us at correctly predicting 44 out of 64 player picks for a percentage of 69%. Now,
nice.
through 2 weeks and the start of a new season, I will take that. The more data we get, the more accurate this is going to become. Now, before we dive into the players, I gotta make sure you're all signed up on Underdog so you can play along with me if you'd like. And all you gotta do, head over to Underdog Fantasy or download the app, create a new account using the referral code Headliners when you do so. Then all you gotta do is make your initial deposit a minimum of $10. You're gonna get a free player pick'em that you can pair with one of the players in today's show, but you're also gonna get a first time deposit bonus. Plus, you're gonna be able to play alongside us all year long and have a lot of fun. Now, I am gonna be posting 3 pick'em entries throughout this show that we can all do together, right? We can ride or die together and have fun along the way. But all right, let's go ahead and dive into the first player. It's Harold Fannin, tight end of the Cleveland Browns. And I really want to pay attention to receiving yards here. The rookie tight end has turned into the safest weekly option in Cleveland's passing game. Through 2 weeks, he's accumulated 14 targets, 12 receptions, and 111 yards receiving. He's also played about 68% of the snaps and is averaging 9.3 yards per reception. It's not like this is some type of blocking tight end. Nah, this guy is not just getting lucky. His last year in college at Bowling Green, he had 117 receptions, over 1,500 yards, and 10 touchdowns in just 13 games. So this isn't a fluke, him being involved right away. But now he gets a matchup going up against one of the best defenses in the NFL, the Green Bay Packers. So why are we even thinking about Fannin this week? Well, there is one place in that Green Bay defense that somewhat struggled, and it's the tight end position. Last week in week 2, Zach Ertz had 6 catches for 64 yards and a touchdown. In week 1 against Detroit, we saw Sam Laporta with 6 catches and 79 yards. Now, Njoku may be the bigger play threat, but Fannin is still the safer floor guy. So let's go ahead and dive into Underdog, and you're going to see that Harold Fannin's line is currently set at 33.5 receiving yards. Now, he has exceeded that total in each of his first 2 games of the season, so it's still totally achievable in this case, I believe, as well. But remember, in this show, we're trying to 2x and 3x our money more often. We want to up the chances that we have to hit on this selection. So you can actually take this total and drop it down to 24.5 receiving yards at a 0.72x multiplier. Slightly lower payout, but a higher chance of hitting it. But let me explain how, right? Like we mentioned earlier, he's averaging 9.3 yards per reception. So in order for him to hit his original receiving yard total of 33.5, he would need 4 receptions. If we take the lower total of 24.5 yards now, we would only need, in theory, 3 receptions, and when you're trying to double your money, that one catch can make a difference. So after him is another rookie tight end. It's Tyler Warren of the Indianapolis Colts. Let's take a look at his receiving numbers. Over the first 2 weeks of the season, he had 16 targets, 11 receptions, and 155 yards. There were some injury concerns earlier in the week, but he's already returned to practice as of Thursday. But everyone kind of expected the Colts to immediately utilize Warren in 2025, but the play of Daniel Jones this far has been a huge surprise. We've seen Warren on the field for 83% of the offensive snaps, and he's averaging right around 14 yards per reception. That usage for a tight end is among league leaders at the position. But now we have a matchup in week 3 against Tennessee. On the surface, it looks like Tennessee isn't an easy matchup for Warren, but when you look a little bit closer, you'll see that Tennessee has played the Rams and the Broncos, who thus far haven't even targeted their tight ends combined as much as Tyler Warren has been targeted by the Colts. So now, let's go ahead and dive into Underdog and see what we can get there. Well, if you go to Underdog, you're going to see that right now they have his receiving yards at 46.5. Now, through the first 2 weeks of the season, he has exceeded that number in both games, averaging 77.5 yards per game, so it's totally possible for him to hit that 46.5 total. But remember, in this show, we're trying to 2x and 3x our money more often. We want to up the chances that this one hits, so you can actually drop his receiving yard total down to 34.5 at a 0.7x multiplier. Once again, a slightly lower payout, but a higher chance of hitting. Remember, like I said earlier, Warren is averaging right around 14 yards per reception. In order to get his original line of 46.5 yards, he would need 4 receptions. If we drop it down to 34.5, he only needs 3 receptions, and that helps our chances of hitting this pick as well. How about some love for a kicker? Spencer Schrader of the Indianapolis Colts. Let's take a look at his field goals made, because this dude is out there winning people fantasy matchups and making kickers look cool again. He had short stints with 3 different teams in 2024, but to start 2025, he has been worked in heavily with the Indianapolis Colts. Over the last 2 years, though, it is worth noting that he has made 14 out of 14 field goals and 14 out of 14 extra points, and he already has 9 field goal attempts through 2 games of 2025, and with the way that Daniel Jones is playing and moving the ball down the field, he's going to have a chance at field goals weekly. Now, this Tennessee defense may not be the best in the NFL, but they are not horrible either. 2 weeks ago, Will Lutz was able to get 2 field goals against this defense, and then last week, Josh Carty did the same. So let's go ahead, let's dive into Underdog and see what we can get here. And when you look at Underdog, you can see they already have him at 1.5 field goals at a discounted 0.89x multiplier. There's no need to drop anything down here since they're already expecting him, somewhat, to get those 2 field goals. Remember, this guy has 9 field goals in 2 games and now has a road game against a Tennessee defense that's capable of making a few stops. Now, obviously, Spencer Schrader doesn't have the lengthy backing of some of these other guys when it comes to research, especially in this show, but he's never missed a kick, so let's try to ride that wave once again in week 3, which then takes us to Caleb Williams, the quarterback of the Chicago Bears, and we're going to look at his rushing upside, and this rushing just seems to be a part of his weekly production from now on. Through 2 games, he's had 11 rush attempts for 85 rushing yards. Now, this game this week against Dallas has the chance of being the highest scoring game of the week, and teams are going to be going back and forth. I can see Caleb trying to extend drives on 3rd downs by picking up the 1st down himself. Caleb has had at least 4 rush attempts now in 9 of his last 10 games played, and over his career, he's averaging right around 7 yards per carry. Last week, we saw an old Russell Wilson run for 23 yards on Dallas, and in week 1, Jalen Hurts ran for 62 yards. But we also need to remember that Chicago has a ton of pass-catching weapons that are going to require defensive attention, so it's also going to be hard to contain Caleb Williams in the pocket. So now, let's dive into Underdog and see what we can get there. If you go there, you're going to see that right now they have his rushing yards set at 27.5. He has hit that in 53% of his last 20 games. And in one of the 2 games so far this year, even though the 1 game in which he didn't, he did have 27 yards, so a very narrow miss. While 27.5 isn't out of the question, it's basically a 50-50 shot. But we can go in and we can drop that rushing total down to 19.5. Remember, we're trying to 2x and 3x our money. We want these to be better opportunities to hit these selections. He has hit 19.5 rushing yards in 11 of his last 15 games played. That's a hit rate of 73%, much better than that 50-50 chance of his regular line. With an average of 7 yards per carry, we would need Caleb Williams to only get 3 carries to surpass that 19.5 number. He has had at least 3 carries in all but 1 game in his career. Now, up next is CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys, and we're taking a look at his receiving yards as well. He has been one of the hottest wide receivers to start the year. Through 2 games, he has 14 targets, 16 receptions, and 222 yards. He is being force-fed the ball by Dak Prescott weekly. But we also mentioned earlier that this game is projected to be the highest scoring game of the week. There is going to be offense in this game, so why not look at the guy that's used most consistently? We saw Amon-Ra St. Brown and the Lions absolutely bury the Bears in week 2. The Bears had no answer for St. Brown, who plays out of the slot. Where does CeeDee Lamb play for the Dallas Cowboys? In the slot. The Bears have allowed 468 yards passing in just 2 weeks, and we have seen that Dallas is not afraid to throw the ball a ton each and every game. But now let's go ahead and dive into Underdog. If you go to CeeDee Lamb's receiving numbers, you're going to see that it's currently set at 81.5 yards. He has surpassed that number in 65% of his last 20 games. So I guess it is attainable in a game like this, but I still want to better my odds. You can take that receiving total and drop it down to 59.5 yards. And if you do that, look at what it does to the odds of hitting. He has surpassed 59.5 yards in 17 of his last 20 games played, and he has averaged 77 yards in games against Chicago. With a receiver that we know is averaging just over 12 yards per reception in his career, we only need 5 catches instead of the potential 7 for the 81.5 yard total. CD has had at least 5 receptions in 13 of his last 14 games, so I definitely like the chances here. Now after him is Christian McCaffrey of the San Francisco 49ers. Let's take a look at his receiving yards as well, because when he's healthy, he's touching the football a ton. He has had 50 touches over the last 2 games of the season. He's also had 17 targets in those 2 games. That's more than most wide receivers in the NFL. But we also know that we have another week of Mac Jones at quarterback, Kittle on the IR, and Jawan Jennings is currently questionable to play, so he's not 100% healthy. Now so far this season, Arizona hasn't allowed much to running backs in the passing game, but last week Chuba Hubbard did have 39 yards and a touchdown. Now historically, Christian McCaffrey has always done well in the passing game against Arizona. He has had at least 66 yards receiving in 5 of his last 6 games against Arizona, and with the lack of weapons in the passing game, a backup quarterback, and the way that he is racking up touches, there is no reason to think that this doesn't keep on going. So let's go ahead and dive into Underdog. If you look up CMC on Underdog, his current receiving yards are at 36.5. Now CMC has exceeded that total in 55% of his last 20 games. Kinda, once again, 50-50, hit or miss. So we want to drop it down to better our chances, and you can do that down to 24.5 yards. If you do that now, we can see that he has hit that number in 85% of his last 20 games played, and he has also hit that number in 100% of the games he's played against the Arizona Cardinals. So with all of that being said, things are lining up once again for him to fly past this line and give us a win. So here are the tickets that I personally went through and built with these 6 plays. I'll have Taylor go ahead and throw them up on the screen. One of them is actually on the Underdog app homepage under packs. There's certain creators out there that submit picks each week. I am in the app this week. You can go ahead and follow along with just one easy click inside the app. Just do me a favor. Be sure to go to the homepage inside the app and just scroll down to where they have the packs at and add it from there. Don't go through and find each player one by one. Save yourself some time, because I've also heard that some people get some added bonuses if they're using the packs. But for fun, I also wanted to throw together a touchdown ticket that anyone can do on any app anywhere. That way, if anyone wants to tail it and have fun with Headliner Nation, you have that opportunity, and here is that ticket. I went with Javonte Williams, Jordan Mason, and Ashton Genty to score either a rushing or receiving touchdown in week 3. All right, there are your 6 picks for week 3. If you're looking to join Underdog, there's a link down below at the top of the description. If you want to join our toxic free Discord and talk about player pick'ems until your ears bleed, that's an option as well. Hit the join button just below the video and become a member of either Full Chub or Excessive Chub. Now, hopefully you enjoy the rest of your week, and hopefully these picks hit.
Nation.